Let's go. What's up, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to the Shred Show Live. I am hanging out with the one, the only, Mr. John Dingman from Class Valuation. And ladies and gentlemen, we got a special show for you because we're doing an Ask an Appraiser. We're AMA. We want to know. We want to get your questions answered. And you guys have been incredible. You've sent us some questions, but we're also going to be answering your questions live. We're in multiple groups on Facebook, on LinkedIn. We're on YouTube. We're everywhere because we want to bring you, with the world as crazy as it is, and with the appraisal, with the housing market as crazy as it is, ladies and gentlemen, we want to get your questions answered. We want to educate you so you can educate your consumers and your borrowers. And there is literally nobody better, well, that's a mouthful, John, than John Dingman hanging out with me this morning. So, ladies and gentlemen, are you ready? Are you ready? It's time to shred some appraisals. I honestly don't know if there's anybody better in the industry to be hanging out with this morning and who could be answering all of your appraisal questions. Ladies and gentlemen, I've got John Dingman hanging out with me this morning. And John, you really are you're incredibly educated. You've been doing this for a long time. You're the chief appraiser over Class Valuation. You know appraisals, my friend. And you've been doing this for those who may not know you, maybe share a little bit of your background and what qualifies you to be one of the most absolutely brilliant people in appraisal history.
Well, Josh, first of all, if you can't wake up in the morning, talking to you, I don't know if you ever wake up, but I appreciate the compliments. I will tell you, I'm not the smartest appraiser in the room. I appreciate the compliments, though. But I am a certified residential appraiser. I'm certified in 11 states for a variety of different reasons, including my home state of Arizona. I am a qualifying and continuing education instructor for appraisers, but I've also taught assessors, mortgage loan originators, and real estate agents, depending on the course material. And I am the past president of the National Association of Appraisers, and I am one of the founding members and past presidents of the Coalition of Arizona Appraisers. And ironically, here I sit at an AMC, but the COA was responsible, or at least in part with the Appraisal Institute and some other organizations here in this state, in enacting our AMC law back in, I guess it was 2009.
2009. Yeah, it was 2009, right?
So I try to stay involved in the industry and the profession. And my wife is an appraiser. That's how I got into the business. My daughter is a trainee, new, and proud to announce she is actually a expecting mother again.
Nice.
So she's our second grandchild into this world. Maybe
John,
we'll be appraised.
I was going to say, John, it's like the family business. You can expect those little grandkids running around appraising houses being, Grandpa, how do I calculate this? Back in their time, technology will be even further than it is now. So that's going to be a whole nother conversation, but it really is a family business. And John, I don't want to waste too much time because I want to just dive right into our questions. We have a ton of questions that I want to get to. So let's just jump right into these bad boys. So if you're ready, the first one comes from Jan Peaton. And I want to kind of set the precedent because this is kind of a question. I saw this on a couple different groups and a couple different conversations, and I would say this with tongue in cheek because I want to start off with kind of the difficult ones, the hard ones. She says, why take an order when you can't fulfill an order? Is this something we see? Is this something that, I know a lot of originators, some people have frustrations with this, but this isn't every company that are taking orders and not just fulfilling them. But I know this is a frustration. So what are your thoughts on this question is when it comes to fulfilling orders or companies taking them and not being able to fulfill them?
So I think it goes at two levels, right? It's the appraisal management company, and then it's also the appraiser that's assigned to it, assuming it's been assigned. Some of the properties are just uber complex, right?
Yeah.
And then you run into additional troubles. Maybe it's the lack of comparable sales that add complexity to the property, or maybe it's some feature to the property that you were not expecting. For example, in California, with the shortage of housing and the changes in laws in 2016 and then again in 2020 for accessory dwelling units, you now have homeowners adding a second accessory dwelling unit, which makes a lot of sense from an investment opportunity. But going, to Fannie or Freddie, for example, or FHA, it's not going to work.
Mm.
The appraiser is not aware of it, so they accept the assignment maybe as a single family with an ADU. Only a week later, or maybe when they inspect the property, they find a second ADU, and that's a challenge.
I was gonna say challenges arise. I love how you answer that because it really does depend on the AMC, depends on the situation. For the most part, like again, and to the question here, I'm gonna throw this question up here, Jan. I mean, sometimes you get bad luck on these. We can't solve for everything, but every once in a while you just get that, you draw the short straw on some of these. And guys, if you were here with us live, if you have questions for John and ask an appraiser, throw your questions out. We'd love to get them answered here live for you. We have a whole bunch of questions, as you can see, we're going to get to. We're just going to keep knocking this out. So let's work with this next one. So this is Jan also has a question. Do you work with AMCs or only lender panels? This is a question that comes to an appraiser. She actually clarified her question there a second ago. So when you guys are looking for appraisers these days, John, when it comes to adding them, I know appraisers, are they just looking to work with AMCs, lender panels? What's best for them? What are they looking for these days?
The easy answer for me, Josh, and you'll learn this over time, is the easy answer and the best answer is it depends.
Sure.
So everybody's business model is different, right? And in appraisers, some of them thrive in the direct model where they're working with a lender directly. Others love working with and prefer working with appraisal management companies, or at least a mix. There's some that don't work in the mortgage financial transaction market at all, but they're in residential. Maybe they specialize in litigation or listing appraisals, or working for homeowners in that regard. So, it just depends. If you're a newer appraiser, maybe it makes more sense. But I have to tell you, we have some very seasoned appraisers, appraisers that also are USPEP instructors on our panel, educators, etc. And for one reason or another, they work with an AMC to supplement their work, and it works. I mean, if the AMC is good to you, they're another client.
There you go. That is a really good answer to it. It really does depend. And I think right now, because there's a little bit of, lack of a better word, there's some chaos, there's some changes going on in the industry, as there always is. Appraisers are really, again, keep this in mind, ladies and gentlemen. We're all humans, and at the very bottom of it, humans try to take care of their own. Like John mentioned, family. Sometimes appraisers are trying to look out for themselves, trying to do what's best for them. So sometimes everything is not perfect, but that's why class valuation and being able to work with a company like this, you guys really choose appraisers. You choose the best of the best. They go through a vetting process. It's not like, hey, just come sign up and work with us. You guys really try to vet the appraisers you work with. Correct, John?
Yeah, and then we continue the quality control process, and we continue to work with the appraisers as best we can. And look, sometimes an experience is different. Your experience at a restaurant is different than mine, right?
I
And
love that.
so for some appraisers, their experience is different, maybe less than desirable, and others find it to be advantageous for them. I mean, look, we pay in 24 to 48 hours. There's not a lot of AMCs that do that. And so for an appraiser who's concerned, for example, with when are they going to get paid, or are they going to get paid? We've seen AMCs go belly up the
Yep.
last 10 years, leaving appraisers hanging dry. And so some of them like the fact that they get paid so quickly. Now, if they don't want to get paid that quickly, we'll still pay within the 30 days, but that's still faster than some.
I was going to say that's still faster than many. So again, just one of the other benefits that class provides. So let's move on to this next question here, John. This is one that I think we just want to hit on quickly. Why are seller concessions listed on a 1004 from Brian Collins?
So seller concessions are listed on all of the residential appraisal report forms, and the reason is the appraiser would adjust for that if necessary upfront, right? So the way I've always looked at it is, I know appraisers treat it differently. Some say if it's typical for the market, but the easiest way to do this is, Josh, if you were an agent and I saw seller concessions, let's call it $5,000. I call you and I say, hey, Josh, would your buyer have bought this house if they didn't get the 5,000 in concessions? And if your answer was no, we would have renegotiated. Then that had an impact on the value, and that should be reconciled in the appraisal report.
There you go. Very simple, Brian. Hopefully that answers your question. Very good question, Brian. Appreciate you submitting that one. And a good, very simple answer. Okay, next one. Our good friend Todd Bookspan sent us a couple of great questions. And anybody who knows Todd, when by noon, the guy has been an industry professional for so many years, has run an incredibly successful mortgage company with his wife. So here's a few questions from him. And I really like these, John. So his first one is there any information that you find helpful if provided by a homeowner or a realtor? Now, I know this is one of those questions, John, is like, how much can they get involved? But is there information that can be helpful to an appraiser that's coming from the realtor or homeowner?
100%. I mean, look, share with me when updates or remodelings took place and what was included in that. If you live in a homeowners association, have the HOA fee readily available for me. I mean, for me, HOAs are widely prevalent here in Phoenix. And I found myself waiting 5-10 minutes for somebody to reach their spouse or find in their checkbook what that HOA fee was. And I just wish they had it up front. Let the appraiser know anything unique about the property. Things like, is it on well and septic, or do you have solar panels and are they leased or owned, right? So there's a lot of information that can be very helpful to the appraiser. I think what appraisers would guard against is their independence, right? And so while you may present sales that were used to price a property or to make an offer, appraisers are not going to want to hear like, I need this value, so do your best, right? And so that I think that can always be helpful. Again, I think there's some confusion around what conversations can take place. Just know that the appraiser is bound by the confidentiality section of the ethics rule under USPAP, and it's very much like HIPAA rules. The appraiser can only talk about the assignment or assignment results with their client, the lender client.
Dude, that is such a good, and everybody go back and listen to that, because there's so many things that you can do to be helpful to an appraiser, but at the same time, like, there's a very fine line. If you're a realtor, don't be like, hey, John, by the way, buddy, here's a couple of comps. This is right where we need to come in at. That like, again, well, if you do that, and honestly, John, I would love your thoughts on this, but when you kind of start to push that on an appraiser, it actually almost makes it go the opposite direction. It doesn't go like, they're not gonna be like, okay, yeah, of course I'm gonna help you out here. It's like, hey, let me do my job. We're trying to keep our industry safe. We're not trying to, inflate the market more than it already is. So they're trying to do their best job. So don't push unneeded pressure on appraisers. They already have a difficult enough job as it is. They don't need you leaning over your shoulder trying to teach them to do their job.
Yeah, it's a matter of respect. I don't think very many appraisers want to tell a real estate agent or a loan originator how to do their job.
Heck no.
I certainly don't. And but look, it can be a healthy conversation, Josh. It is one of mutual respect, and the appraiser does have a job to do. And so if you understand and can present it in a fashion that's, you're offering help, right? Like, hey, these are the sales that we use to list or price this property. I thought they might be helpful for you, especially in a market where the sales comparables are not readily available.
I love that. There you go. I think that's where to leave it. Just think from how can I provide value? I always talk about this. This is a relationship game. If you can provide value to that appraiser without stepping over that line, that's where you should go with it. So question number 2 from our good friend Todd is, what is the most annoying thing that a realtor frequently does or says to you? And again, this is kind of along those same lines, but I'm sure that John, again, maybe trying to push value. What are some of the things that realtors or even mortgage professionals do to appraisers that they're like, dude, please stop this?
Oh, man.
Oh, man, you can see the long list of John's like, oh, my, where do I even start with this question?
I mean, look, I take everything with a grain of salt when I'm in the field. And so I just try to understand where they're coming from. But and by the way, I have this model, even when it's emails and phone calls, Windows has a post, like a little notepad on your computer, those little Post-it notes. I write myself notes sometimes, right? I get angry at myself. I read it again. I feel better. 30 minutes later, I can go back and have a professional conversation with whomever I'm speaking with. Right. And I share that with real estate agents and loan originators too. It's a good practice. Right.
Nice.
But listen, I think at the end of the day, I just want somebody to respect me for the profession in how I handle my job and help me rather than push me in one direction or another. It's just not helpful and it's not meaningful.
Oh, so there you go. See, there's a fine line right there. Just have a respect. It's all about mutual respect. If you're going to respect their time and their efforts, everything they're doing for you, they're going to respect yours. I like that. Jackson, I do see your comment here on LinkedIn. I'm going to get to that question here in a second, Jackson Ball. I see you. For some reason, LinkedIn won't let me pull in that comment, but I do see your question about the Fannie pending policy. So we'll get to that here in just a second, Jackson. So stay tuned, Jackson. We're definitely going to get to that one. So this next one, or this last question from Todd, is, can you define what makes a comp usable? Now, this is something, again, this can be very valuable. What is a realtor, or sorry, what is an appraiser looking for? What makes a comp actually usable, especially in this market?
Well, Josh, so I like to call them sales transactions, and I think that that might be helpful. By the way, if you're presenting to an appraiser, most
Sure.
appraisers are going to say a sales transaction is comparable when they've deemed it to be comparable to the subject property, right?
Nice.
And so, from my perspective, once again, the answer is it depends. It depends on the market in the property, and so you're looking for the most similar and that the typical buyer would see as similar to that subject property, right? And so you can measure that sometimes in the number of adjustments and how big those adjustments are. I mean, imagine my house, you haven't seen it, but 2,200 square feet here in Phoenix in a suburb. Could I compare it let's see, Elon Musk's house? I probably could. It would require a lot of adjustments and very large adjustments, right? So we're looking for the most similar. And if you
Nice.
can find a model match with no adjustments, well, that's your perfect comp.
I would say that's exactly what you're looking for. So, Todd, thanks so much for the questions. Great questions there and great answers there by John. Moving on to this next question. This comes in from Matthew Craig. What can lenders and agents do to facilitate quicker turn times on appraisals? Which I want to talk about this here in just a second too. I actually saw a comment in one of the groups that we're in around this same question here in a second. But turn times are such a big conversation right now, John. What can we as lenders, as agents, as mortgage professionals, what can we do to really help those to facilitate quicker turn times?
Well, look, I think everybody's challenged a little bit, right? So I know when I talk to some loan originators, they withhold ordering the appraisal up front. They're waiting for things like credit reports and everything else to come in to whether or not it's even going to be a deal, right?
Sure.
But ordering it as soon as possible, and then providing as much information about the property. I mean, again, if you know that there's two ADUs, share that with the AMC or the appraiser. Obviously, if you share it with us, we'll do the same. Anything you can provide about the information you can provide about the property, it would be immensely helpful. And so, if it's a purchase, make sure you're uploading the executory contract, right?
There you go.
The appraiser is going to need it. So if you don't upload it right away, it's just causing a delay and it's unnecessary.
There you go. Awesome. So, and right along with that, this was literally came in one of the groups as we were getting ready this morning. So kind of like just along the line, Stephen Lee Burton had a realtor that I couldn't, or just had a realtor tell me if I couldn't have an appraisal back within 48 hours, the contract would be voided. And he doesn't understand why I'm shocked to see a 2-day time period for an appraisal. I was given the contract today. So what's the average turn time in your area with a rush? I find it unacceptable without any notice. This is a comment. Again, this just barely came in about 20 minutes ago as we were preparing for this show. So John wasn't even quite prepared for this one. But John, this is something that we are seeing. This isn't the first time I've seen something like this. We're seeing unrealistic expectations from the realtor side, from brokerages. I've seen this multiple times on the realtor side. What can we do as mortgage professionals to really set the bar, to set the precedents, to educate? Is it just a matter of having more of these conversations? Sometimes we see these unrealistic expectations from the real estate side. What do you do? What are your thoughts on how do we really start to combat this?
Look, education and having, informed conversations with your business partners, right? I mean, they are our partners collectively, and setting somebody up for false expectations drives failure.
Of course.
I don't see how anybody wins from that, but I get it. It's a marketing strategy, I suppose. But really, again, having those informed discussions and just say, listen, this is unrealistic. It surprises me because they all know my brother's a real estate agent. He's a realtor here in the Metro Phoenix area, so he's well aware of the time constraints on appraisals. And yeah, some homeowners want to pursue timelines like that, and others are a little more accommodating. But again, false expectations.
See, I agree 100%, John. Sometimes we do it to ourselves as mortgage professionals. So if you're in a certain marketplace or in a community and you're seeing these, like, make sure that you are stating factual, like stating the correct information. Don't state incorrect facts. Don't tell home buyers or people like, oh yeah, 2 days, like this is going to happen, no problem. Like, make sure you are doing your part. Don't set unrealistic expectations with your borrower, with realtors. Don't try to have that as a selling point. Turn times are getting better. Technology is getting incredible. But John, again, we have to do we all have to take a part in this and making this happen. So one of the other questions I want to get to here is typically more experienced appraisers will not work with AMCs and won't take reduced fees. Is this true?
So Josh, I lost my audio for a second. Just can you repeat that question?
Of course. Absolutely. Hey guys, you all know how it is. That's why we do this live. Because again, it doesn't have to be perfect. Sometimes things happen and we adjust and we adapt and we overcome. So the question was, typically more experienced appraisers will not work with AMCs and won't take reduced fees. Is this true?
Well, I wouldn't recommend anybody take a reduced fee. I mean, the appraiser should be making the fee that they believe they deserve and based on the property type. So I hear the same comments from some folks. Again, if I had an NDA with you, Josh, and we went through our panel of 17,000 plus appraisers, I think you'd be pleasantly surprised to see some of the names on our panel. Again, it's all based on experiences. And Josh, not all appraisers feel the same way about an AMC. Some have had very poor experiences, and it's just not in their wheelhouse to continue to work with them. And I get it.
There you go. So Jackson Ball on LinkedIn has a good comment. There's a Fannie pending policy on hybrid appraisals. What are your thoughts on these?
Well, so it's desktop appraisals is the announcement both from Fannie and Freddie that are coming here in March. They have some very specific requirements. Of course, appraisers and real estate agents and loan originators are all concerned and trying to gather as much information about this desktop policy as they can. For the lenders, you're going to get a DU message. The property has to qualify, right? There's loan to value ratio. There's a bunch of other things that play into whether or not that property is even eligible for a desktop. The second is there are requirements for the appraiser. And just like COVID flexibilities, the appraiser has to be able to identify the relevant property characteristics. So they have to know the materials and conditions used in the property, the room counts, all of that good stuff. They need to be able to opine on the quality and condition of the property. So they have to be able to see it in some regard. And then they have to develop a credible appraisal report. In addition to that, they have to include a floor plan. And the floor plan doesn't just include interior walls, but doors. So how do you access the property, staircases, etc. So there's a lot more going into the floor plan. Appraisers are going to find themselves challenged to meet those requirements. And if they can't, then they have to refuse that assignment. Now, they could get some information from MLS listings, but I think folks are going to be challenged to find those floor plans.
Absolutely.
For class, we're going to default to the hybrid process, which is what you're referring to. So data collection in that regard, which will generate all of the necessary photographs, a floor plan to ANSI standards, and a 3D tour, not just of the inside, which we would typically see in a marketing listing, but also a 3D tour of the exterior. So the appraiser can virtually inspect the property as though they were there. And if they can't do it after that, then it's going to have to be expanded to a traditional appraisal.
See, guys, that's why we have John. He's sharing the latest and the greatest, and even technology, where the appraisals are going, which is a whole nother conversation in itself. We have a few more questions I want to get to here, John. Benjamin Travis over on LinkedIn says, every industry has assistants for their profession. Why are appraisers different? Appraisers should not be doing anything that does not require a licensed virtual assistant that would handle all their emails, portal messages, scheduling bid requests, sending completed reports, etc., making communication back to the client so much better and helping turn times. What are your thoughts on this, John?
Well, once again, I think it just depends on the appraiser, right, and their business model. And look, we all do things differently, Josh. So I know when we went to a paperless office and using OneNote back in 2007, I guess it was, that changed our business, and we stopped buying a ream of paper every week.
It's true.
Um, it's a change. Now, there are things that the appraiser has to look out for. Again, confidentiality, who has access to their files and information, and there's obviously concerns there. But definitely can have assistants. They can hire trainees. We love the use of trainees, and most of our lender partners will allow the use of a trainee. That brings new entries into the workforce, right? Into our profession, new entries like my daughter. And so there are some opportunities to do that. It's just not everybody's business model.
I agree. Even with mortgage professionals, there are some people out there that they still, and again, this isn't so much an efficiency thing. It's more of like, what do you feel most comfortable with? Like, I agree with the comment. I think it's great. I had, a loan assistant, Benjamin, but it's to each their own. I know there's an appraiser here in my building here in Utah that I've talked with many times, and he doesn't want to have an assistant. I've literally had this conversation with him. He just he knows the business. He's been doing it for over 40 years. He knows his business really, really well. So it's to each their own. Could there be a little bit more efficiency? Absolutely. But at the same time, when you have a great partner like Class Valuation, that again, there's so much technology, there's so much data that's coming in that's helping these appraisers. It, again, is a huge team effort, which I want to start wrapping things up here, John, because this is a question we saw on about 3 different posts. And again, this goes to educating, and I'm excited to kind of end on this question because the question is this: aren't AMCs just middlemen who complicate and increase the price of an appraisal? When I read this, I'm just like, man, that is just the uneducation, and people just don't understand this. So what are your thoughts? What is your response to this one?
Who I disagree. As an appraiser and owning a firm, we worked with AMCs, and we worked with direct lenders. So I have no aversion to an AMC model personally. Now I'm at one. As having been at an AMC now, 4 different ones over the course of the last 8 years, I've seen some clients decide to go to the direct model. I've seen those same clients come back to the AMC model. I've seen some direct lenders try to sell their appraisal desk. Remember, there's a cost associated with compliance and QC. And when it's at the direct lender, they cannot make any money off of the appraisal fee. So whatever the appraiser is asking for, that's the only fee they can collect from the consumer. So most of you, I think, Josh, most of the loan originators on here, the lenders are revenue generating companies, right? And so loan officers and processors and underwriters, they're generating revenue. It's very hard when you see an appraisal desk and none of those folks are generating revenue for you. And so the sales organizations often want to take those and position them somewhere else. And, some lenders find great value in the relationship with the AMC and some don't. Again, I think it goes based on experiences.
There
right?
you go.
If lenders had a bad experience with an AMC or a couple, then it is what it is. Look, we can see the last year too, Josh, in the market, right, with the capacity constraints. If the lender doesn't believe their partner, the AMC, who's sharing the information about capacity constraints and turn times, and then obviously they become frustrated.
Yep.
And they think that this is a roadblock set up by the AMCs. It's just not.
It really is not. And again, I appreciate you should guys, this is why we're doing these Ask Me Anythings, why we have John, why we have Class working with us, and we're discussing these things because we want to educate you so you can in turn go educate your realtor partners, your referral partners, even your consumers. That's what it takes. We as an industry have to work together. We have to become more educated so we can in turn educate the consumers out there. So John, you've done such a brilliant job. I appreciate everything you shared. We answered a lot of questions today, ladies and gentlemen, some really good questions. And we appreciate everybody that submitted a question or asked a question here live, because again, there is no dumb questions. There are no bad questions, because if you have that question, there's probably somebody else who has it as well. So we appreciate John and Class coming out today and sharing all their knowledge with us. And John, there's some things that you even talked about that I'm sure we're going to have you back on the show again, going into even more depth about future of technology, things that are changing. I know you and I talked about that last time, but there's some really exciting things that are coming up within, especially the market that we're in, with housing heating up more than ever, with interest rates on the rise. There are ways that companies like Class and AMCs can actually help you to become more competitive in the market. So, John, thank you so much for being here this morning. Appreciate all you always continue to share. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Josh. And thanks, everyone. Appreciate you.
I say huge shout out to everybody involved, guys. We really appreciate you guys coming out and with the questions you have. It's always great to come together as an industry to share our knowledge. We as an industry can continue to help one another become better. And with that, guys, as always, we appreciate you. We love you. Now it's time for all of you guys to go shred, go show up, hustle, repeat every day. See ya.